Namaskar, Vanakkam, Nungaibro, Kemcho, Adab, Sasriyakal, and hello to everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk Technology. Today I'm going to talk about a very important topic. As you know, there has been a study which clearly indicates that why 90% startups fail in the first year. So there are top 3 reasons to talk about why the startups fail. I'm going to start with the first reason is lack of proper funding. Second reason being lack of a very good team, or so to say, you are working with the wrong team. The third and most important reason is lack of proper market study. So if you are launching a product and you've not studied the product properly, and you've launched it, you are getting strong competition from competitors and you are not able to market your product. So that is one big reason that amounts to startups failing in the first year itself. So let's start with the first reason of funding. So hypothetically, let's take an example that you start a startup with one of your friends or one of your cousins. You are taking care of the coding part, he's taking care of the finances part, but you have not actually calculated how much money you're going to need to launch the product or the service that you are going to develop. Suppose you are working on a product and you start the coding part. You imagine that it would finish by 6 months. So you have ample funds to launch the product in 6 months' time. There is some miscalculation in a way that the product is extended to almost 9 months or 1 year, or as you had calculated that the product would start selling by the end of 6 months and you are not able to sell that product. So this is because of lack of a good business plan. If you don't have a business plan and you don't imagine the things where it should be, and you are not calculating it properly, how you can or how you will encounter the other X factors that might affect your funding. Suppose you have say 10 lakhs each. Both of you are ready to launch with 20 lakhs, but when you start coding, the time it takes to code, as calculated earlier, was 6 months, but now you are well into the 12th month and you have still not launched the product. Obviously, the costs of maintaining yourself for the extra 6 months goes up. Now your wife is shouting at you, your kids want their fees to be paid in time. All those expenses, they need to be taken care of. So what do? So the first thing that you need to do is market study. Market study is something that you should be very well aware of. The funds that you had started with are starting to erode and you are now in dearth of funds. So what is the first thing that you and your partner are going to do? You just sit together, you calculate for not just for the 6 months, but you start calculating for 2 years. So suppose we do not succeed in the first year, then what? What do we have for the next year? Can we sustain ourselves for 2 years? If not, can we get a VC or a funding for something? Without seeing a product, no VC would give you the funding. So what is it that you need to do? You need to make sure that if you had calculated 6 months, you need to finish your product in 6 months. Or rather, I would say you should need to finish your product within the 4 months itself, so that you give yourself ample time to test the product. You find some bugs, you remove those bugs. Bugs are removed, the product, a good product, is launched into the market. But is that the only reason why the companies fail? No. The second reason is wrong team. You started your startup and you are in need of a team, whether it's technical team or the management team. Most startups fail because of the wrong management team, not because of a wrong coding team, because mostly startups are starting with one or two coders or one or two developers, software developers on their platform. It's the management team that you need to take care of, to hire a very good management team. So somebody who has ample experience in managing, who is ready to take the plunge with you in a startup. Suppose you hire somebody who's working in a well established firm or an organization, and he is ready to join you in a startup. What is the reason? Obviously exposure is one, but are you good enough to pay him the kind of salary he might be demanding? So these are the factors that we need to take care of in terms of hiring a good team. Last factor that comes into mind is again the market study. Market study is basically you have identified a pain area, or you've identified a gap in the market where where you think that this product of yours can create ripples in the market with excellent sales once the product is launched. So you've identified that gap and you've identified that pain area for some other organizations or some other even sector or any industry, and you are working on the development of that product. So it's a good thing to have a proper study of the market done beforehand, before you even start to form a startup company. And that is where you have identified the gap, and that is where you identified the niche. That becomes your USP, and that can probably uh, take your shelf life or your company's shelf life to 5-10 years. You need to see that part, whether this product would survive itself in the next 5 years or not. And this is where I think market study is very, very important. Thank you so much for viewing this, guys, and I would really appreciate if you can like, subscribe, and give comments on this particular topic. I would very much appreciate this. So now comes the second part of the video, where we would like to see how the startups have succeeded and what good they have done to succeed, and the top 5 reasons why they have succeeded. The first reason again is it's the opposite of the bad team, a very good team. The first thing that you need is a very good team. Second thing is unique idea. What is your USP? What kind of gap you have identified which can become your USP? Third, having good funding. Good funding is very, very important. Fourth, you have a very good business model. And last but not the least is good timing. Good timing simply means when you launch your product. So the first point is excellent team. As I said earlier, that if you have a wrong team, you cannot succeed. So similarly, when you hire somebody, you need to have checked all, not just the credentials of the person, but on the first day itself, you need to assign the roles and responsibilities. Give them a sheet. Give them a sheet in their hand on the first day. This is your role. This is your position. And these are the responsibilities that we would want you to do. These are the responsibilities that you need to take care of. Once the roles and responsibilities are properly defined on the first day, there is no confusion, whether it is a coder, whether it's a designer, whether it's a software developer, whether it's a QA, whether it's a manager who's managing the team. It does not matter. If the roles and responsibilities are clearly defined, there is no way that the person will not be able to grow with you. or whether he will not be able to contribute to the growth of the company. And that is one good aspect where they can grow themselves. So when a new joinee or a new person joins, he or she also sees that how can I grow in this organization. So what do you give them? You give them a draft on the first day itself. This is your career graph. Say, suppose if you are doing these roles and responsibilities uh, to your best, from the sixth month onwards, these would be extra two roles for your next promotion. These are the next four responsibilities that you need to take care for the next 6 months. So, what you are doing here is you are making them accustomed to their new promotional role when they would get it after first year. So they are already excited in terms of the new promotion that they are going to get by the end of first year. So that brings about the sense of belonging. That brings about that yes, I do belong in this company. This organization needs me. This organization wants me. And with this organization, I can grow. So these are some of the important aspects and points where you can hire a good team and retain a good team. Next in line, or the second point, as I discussed, was unique idea. Unique idea. What is your unique idea with which you wanted to launch your company? What is your unique idea with which you started to code? That idea was perhaps a gap. That idea was perhaps a opportunity that you saw in the market that does not exist, or if it exists with very few competitors. There is hardly any strong competition to your idea. So that becomes your USP. What if the shelf life of your idea is 5 years or 10 years or probably more? But if you have not calculated whether the idea is gonna survive 5 years, then it might be hard for you to just keep running after that idea and floating on that, or keep your company floating on that. So that is another good point that makes a company or a startup a successful company. Thirdly, the point that we discussed is good funding. Whether you have good funding or not, or how are you going to allocate your funds to various departments? Would you be able to survive the next 6 months, 12 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years with the kind of funding that you have? If you don't have the funding, do you have any reserves for a VC or an investor that you might be looking at before even starting? So, these are some of the important factors in terms of having good funding for your product or service. So, make sure you just don't see at the first year or the kind of funds that you will have at the launch of your product. So, say 6 months down the line, you launch a product, and at that time you are probably running out of funds and you don't know how to create new funds either from your product or service or from any investor. So what do? Basically, this is what you need to discuss with your partners, with your co-founders firsthand on the first day itself, that if we don't survive the kind of funding that we have. Worst case scenario, what is our worst case scenario? What is our go to niche where we can achieve or retain or sustain ourselves in such a way that we don't have to find funds from anybody else? So, these all points you need to discuss with your partners and your co founders so that you don't have dearth of funds when you are launching the product. Next in line is the business model. So, what business model are you adopting? Whether you are launching a product and you don't know what kind of business model that you want to launch with. So this is the another thing that you need to discuss and that you need to chalk out in terms of what business model shall we adapt. Whether the subscription model is good for me, whether a flat fee model is good for me, whether a BOT model is good for me. Should I take my product to the market with a free subscription for the first 3 months and then a paid subscription later on? So these are all the things that matter, and that all depend upon, again, on market survey. So market survey is very, very important. You need to see what kind of business plan that you should be working on, what is best for you. You can even adapt two business plans for you. You can launch some of your products with one business plan and some of your service or the other product with another business plan, and see what is best for you. Or you can hire somebody who knows about business plans, ask them for their consultancy, and they can suggest a suitable business plan for you. So these all things can happen once you've hired somebody for a good advice. And make sure the person that you hire or the consultant that you hire has ample experience in producing good business plans. Last, good timing. So what is a good timing? So when you launch a product, it should have ample demand in the market. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. I knew a pharma company that was giving about 50, 60, 70 lakhs turnover for the last 4 or 5 years. And when the pandemic hit, the first thing that this guy did was started making sanitizers and masks, which was not even his forte. He was totally into making medicines, but he branched out. With this branching out, he could identify the potential. And within the first month itself, rather, it took him about 40-45 days to change his current manufacturing scenario to manufacture just the masks and hand sanitizer. It took him about 45 days to start manufacturing from the first, when the lockdown was announced in March. By the time it was June, he had launched his products and he was doing excellent sales. Today, the company is sitting at about 7 to 8 crores of annual turnover in the last 2-3 years itself, 2.5 years. And that is what is good timing is all about. He looked at the potential and he launched his product within no time. That is good timing. So make sure, you follow these 5 steps. These 5 reasons are good enough to make any startup succeed. Just let me know, guys, if you think you have some more points to discuss and you would like me to discuss any other thing related to the similar topic. Put this in the comments and we will be happy to answer your questions and queries. And don't forget to subscribe the channel and like the comments. Thank you so much, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.